Okay.
Hey!
Yeah, we're both here this time.
So we're both here this time. A little different setting, a little worse quality, but we decided to do it from our house because we're having a youth retreat meeting after this
Yeah.
with the other counselors. So this was easier. Uh, Today's lesson on Closer with Jesus, episode 10.
I have no idea.
I think it's 10. We're gonna go with 10. Episode 10. It is not necessarily proof of God's existence because we already know He exists, and every person in their heart knows He exists. Even atheists, they know He exists. They just don't want to believe it. This is just proof that hey, there's evidence. You know He exists. Here's some evidence. If you are trying not to believe because you say there's a lack of evidence.
Right, and there's some people that you give them a certain type of evidence and they don't want to believe it because it doesn't assure them in a way where it looks like evidence, if that makes any sense.
Right. Or they could have a sin, and if God's not real, they don't have to face it.
Yeah,
like
I went
just
I
leave it
went
behind
to
them and not worry
a
about it.
God's Not Dead, not convention, what do you call it? It was just a seminar type thing. And you got to ask them questions after, and it was the people that made the God's Not Dead movie, they were using the science, they have a book and everything. But this atheist dude who had a shirt that even said "Show me the evidence" was talking to them, and they tried to convince him with more evidence and delve in deeper. And one of the examples they used of a lot of evidence, or not necessarily exact evidence, but a evidence for something in creation that created us. Our eye, as I'm pretty sure I've said in one of the videos
We said it before.
There's so many cells in just our eyes and all the nerves that in our brain that it takes to see. There's more cells in all that than there are stars in the sky of what they can calculate. So if that doesn't show some sort of creator behind it, because everything has a creator, an art piece. I know. So,
I'm too.
I mean, games, TVs, computers, art, everything has a creator, and so why wouldn't the world?
Yeah, like you look at a building, and you don't think that building, every brick fell from the sky, rain washed in mud, formed into perfect bricks. They stacked on top of each other and perfectly made this house.
Right.
You don't think that you go, oh, there was a builder.
Yeah.
There was someone who made that because we know that every building has a
even
builder.
with the walls of Jericho, I believe when they were looking at it, it didn't look like it fell over left or right like any wall would. It fell down. It went straight down, not one way or the other. And so, I mean, that's just another thing which is
scary.
cool to me, you know. But there's this new thing that's been popping up all over YouTube, and we've looked into it a little bit, not as deep as we probably want to, but because I mean, I tried to debunk it because if it's new information, you're gonna want
anytime you hear something new, regardless of if it supports your argument or not, you want to go take a deeper look at it because that way, better left over. That's fine. That way you know you're right and you're not spreading false information. And I think when you got here, it was like 6:30.
Yeah.
And we looked it up for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Since you got here, just to make sure because we don't give y'all false information.
Right. And it's like we've said before, we can definitely still get false information.
Yeah.
And I mean,
there's always a chance we're wrong.
That just happens.
We're humans. That's what happens. But the thing is with our DNA, it's a double helix.
Which basically is a twisted ladder.
I think it's twisted ladder. And every so often you will get these pairs
that's the
create
end
sequence.
of the strand.
Yeah, we think it's the end of the strand. We think. We're humans, so forgive us if we
It could just be somewhere
right.
in a different spot of the strand, but I think it's at the end.
And it's a sequence of 10, 5, 6, 5. And that repeats.
Right.
Forever.
And then that gets a little bit more complicated because I wanted to look into it because based off of my own knowledge of how DNA and sequencing works.
He's becoming a doctor.
Yeah. Of how all that works, it didn't make sense for something to be 10, 5, 6, 5 because even if it was coding, it would have to be in patterns of 3, and that didn't really make too much sense unless it was the same exact code 10 times and then 5 times and then 6 times and then 5 times.
Right.
But what this one video had showed is that every 4 sequences, basically, sequences, because I mean, adenine and thymine and then guanine and cytosine, they match together. and that's what the rungs are. It's one nucleic acid and another nucleic acid that match together and they stay there. But
and that forms one little bar.
And every 4, there's or each, like 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 4 different rungs. It's a pattern that repeats 10 times, and then there's a different pattern, I believe, that would repeat 5 times, and then 6 times, and then 5 times again.
And then that whole thing repeats.
Right. And that's how I'm understanding it. That's how it would make sense.
That's how I think we've found
we were trying to understand it further.
That sequence, when you take it and you convert it to Hebrew letters, it spells Yahweh.
Because the 10 is a Y, and then the 5 is a H, right?
And then 6 is a W.
Yep.
The other one is an H, and that's how you spell Yahweh in Hebrew, is Yahweh, like that.
And then we ended up adding more letters in there for the English alphabet and stuff. Once
so we can
all that came
pronounce
down.
it right, because otherwise you don't pronounce it right.
Yeah.
Like Yahweh, when we write that down in English, it's not quite right because
we use vowels and use consonants.
Which is different from Hebrew, and it's language. It's how language works.
Yeah.
But we thought that was really cool because that means God's
fascinating.
Like in every single thing of your DNA, God has his little autograph there.
Yep. Every single every single person has DNA. There's no argument against that. You know,
like you can't not have DNA.
Right.
You have to have it
and
to exist.
And for like humans and stuff, I mean, we share. I don't remember what the exact number was, but it's over 90% of DNA we share with just a banana.
Banana.
Okay. Dude. So if it takes that much for something to be living, because I mean, a banana is a plant, so it's therefore living. It means that's a blueprint for life, and that means we're very similar, so we would have more genetic similarities. We're like, I believe it's really close to 100% basically, and there's just a little bit of DNA that switches all your genetics that show your appearance basically.
But how you look.
Right.
There's also how it affects your blood type, your organs,
everything that you can think about the human body, sex even, it changes everything. And it's literally it's a large portion, but whenever you actually look at DNA, it's a small portion of your DNA that changes all of that, and everything else is basically the blueprint for life. And that's just like really cool stuff to me. But with the Yahweh thing, it's like it's a signature, and another thing was if you look at how it's spelled, it like this is what this one lady was saying on a video, is that it looks like, or whenever you say it, just the letters in English basically, it's like you're breathing. So even whenever you're just breathing in and out, you're saying Yahweh every time you're saying God's name. Which I thought that was cool whenever that was shown onto my feed. So yeah,
it's crazy, dude. There's so much of the universe and our own biology that we don't understand.
Oh, there's tons of it, and they thought that not a long time ago. This was literally a little after the 1950s, I believe. That they thought it was our ribosomes, because there's so many of them that's what controlled our genetics, and pass it down. They didn't even think that it would be something as small, even though it's still pretty big and long. It's still smaller
compared to like everything else.
Because it's in the nucleus.
It's small,
right? And they didn't know what it did, and then they finally were able to look at it better, and that's what they figured out. That's what the genetic code is, and we could even be wrong today about that being the genetic code somehow, because they would swear that the ribosomes were what were passing our genetics, but really it was only translating. So
it's crazy. There was a there was a video I watched while I was researching this of if God exists, right? Why can't we see him? Why can't we understand him? And part of the thing is can the creation understand the creator? It can't. Right. If you build the house doesn't understand you. It just exists. And it's like how we build robotics, right? We see our arms, and they are amazing. Like I'm doing this right now. I'm thinking about it, and it's happening instantly. When we build robotics, it's okay. Put in the command.
Yep.
Then it does that.
And
it's imperfect.
And first, you have to figure out how to make that command first. And God did that in 7 days.
Yeah.
For us. Or less than
He did
7.
that in less than 7. 'Cause
Right.
a man was made on the 6th day, right?
I think so.
We did a whole lesson on this. I know we know this, right? I believe it's the 6th day. On the 6th day, he made us. He did it in less than a day because he made a whole bunch of other stuff also on the 6th
Right.
day. It's insane. He was like, yes, this is going to be, we're making it in our image. We're going to make this. And we are crazy complex.
That
Yeah,
we
crazy
still
complicated.
don't understand the full extent of what our body is capable of. I mean, even just our minds can affect our physical health.
And your physical health can reverse that and affect your mind. Like when people are depressed, sometimes they work out, and when they start working out, they're no longer depressed.
Right. Because it's giving their body something to do, and they're getting healthier, and so that changes your mindset. But another thing that I wanted to bring up was, we need to read that book. Me and you need to read that book. God's Not Dead. That book that I have, it's in my car, but I haven't read it yet. I don't know why, but I listened to the whole seminar. So
you still have my book that you need to read too.
Yeah, but another thing that I wanted to bring up is how many connections there are in the Bible. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I've seen that video. It's like it looks like a rainbow.
Because it's multiple different colors and they're showing the different connections. And I believe it was over 69,000, or was it million?
It's above 60,000, and they're all different manuscripts, and they are all cross references.
Yeah, cross references in the Bible
for reference
from New Testament and Old Testament.
For reference, 60,000 cross references manuscripts, right? Homer had less than 10.
Yeah,
and we treat the Iliad and Odyssey like this is history. It's embellished with it, but we have 10 manuscripts so that we can validate it. The Bible has 60,000, and we're like, are we sure that happened?
And that was written, and those books are written by the same person. The ones that you're talking about, correct?
The manuscripts?
Yes.
No, they're cross references to each other.
Okay.
So they're written by different people. Like Homer was all written by him, but they were.
And I think the dude said that the Bible was written by 40 different people. Is that right?
People.
So it was about 40 different people, maybe more. And there's that many.
I'll find that video.
There's that many cross references, and then YouTube's right here. No. There
we go. Okay.
So there's that many people over an extended time frame, and then the dude in the video said the Bible was written in 3 different languages. Right? It was Hebrew, Aramaic, and why am I forgetting this one? This is the most basic one. Greek, yeah.
Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic.
Yeah, it was written in 3 different languages according to this guy. I thought it was 2 for the longest time, and over over a period of 2,000 years. So all of those cross references, even if it was just in the Old Testament or just the New Testament, that's a whole lot of cross references. But they did it with both. There's not, and that's it.
This is it.
Let's play that.
All right, so we're gonna.
This is how we're gonna have to do this.
Sorry. Actually, we'll just let you listen to it. But you can kind of see right there.
That's the lines of how many references.
That's not even the whole.
That's with somewhere else.
Like a quarter. There's 3/4 more for you to see. Is that about a third? It's about a third. Yeah, you're right. About a third of that. There's 2/3 more of that over here in the ether. But it's insane.
This is a graph that shows the handiwork of God. What you're seeing here is every cross-reference in the Bible that is overt, an overt cross-reference in the Bible. But here's the point. If this was the work composed by one man, we would say, this man is a master. He's a master composer. The problem is, this is written by 40 different men over 1,500 years on 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa, in 3 different languages, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, and the entire book tells one united story. It's all connected together. The only answer for this is God, period. You find me another book in all of human civilization that even scratches the surface of this.
And it's just another one of those things that are highly fascinating, and there's even other stuff that points to evidence of God, like again the eye thing with the stars that I was talking about, and then the complexity of our brains, not even animals have the complexity of our minds to show as much emotion and all that we do. I mean, we don't even understand how drugs fully affect us, even though there's thousands of studies on just one of them, you know? And so it's just crazy to think about how, like, you can see all this evidence, and sure, some of the evidence is very arguable, you know, it's not clear. But to a Christian, that evidence, it's like, it's what faith is. It's what faith is.
Mm-hmm.
Faith, people will ask you, how do you have so much faith? Or I think that's how it goes, right? And it's like, okay, here, look at this. Let's go outside, and you can see outside behind us. There's no wind right now, but say this tree behind us was swaying back and forth, right? It would be swaying back and forth. You can't see the wind, but you can see what the wind is doing to everything else around you. And also, sorry if you hear dogs running around or fighting, because there's dogs here. They're cute.
I'm bringing one in the video.
But
so make sure they don't do anything.
But they always, like, that's just really cool. You can see what the wind is doing, but you can't see the wind. God works the same way. You can't see God, but you can see what he's doing in your life. You can see how he's affecting things around you. You can look at lives of many people without God. I mean, there was this one guy who went around the whole entire world, sold books about, and this is from that comedian. I mean, you both know he's a terrible comedian, but this was really funny. He was talking about how, this guy, he did a whole bunch of stuff talking about how there's a lack of evidence of God and how God's not real, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he died of, voice box cancer or something? Something that deals with you talking. And it was cancer. Yeah, something. And the dude was like, that sounds like a God just doing this. You know? And I thought that was, it was hilarious.
They were talking about this at school today, that certain groups of people are just running up to God and spitting in his face and going, try me! Do it, God! Take me down! And I'm looking at, I was like, and we're looking at God, what he can do. He can create hurricanes, storms so large they rip cities and flood them and drown people.
And that can go back to, I think we went over this, right? Did we go over the Red Sea? The parting of the Red Sea?
But we think that we can fight a God who is stronger than hurricanes and, get out of here, hurricanes and tornadoes. Hurricanes or tornadoes. You're crazy. I'm sorry, you're crazy if you think you're gonna fight a God who's that strong.
There's other people that are like, oh, God didn't write the Bible, blah blah blah. If you think, this is another thing Brother Ray says a lot, if you don't think a God who can create an entire universe, right? He can create us. You don't think that he can't influence people and basically take their hand and tell them what to write or speak into their ear?
It's like this. All right, God, what do you want me to write?
My word.
Okay. I'm actually gonna say I word instead of my word. So let me just go write I, and God goes, no, I said my, and gets them to write that. If your God is so small that he can't do that, I'm sorry. That sucks.
I mean, and God doesn't even have to just do, he doesn't even have to physically intervene. He can simply influence you and put things in your path that make you want to write something very specific.
What he wants to get written, he will get written. It's not a question of if, it's a question of how long.
And those people didn't even have to write. They didn't have to write that because God gave us free will, right?
Right.
So it's the fact that they were willing to write all of these words.
They were saying, God, choose me, let me serve you. And God was like, all right, right.
And another thing about that Brother Ray says a lot. Well, he doesn't say it a lot anymore, but it's that story about that football player that you're talking about. It's the football player was mocking God. It was raining or something.
Not the football player. There was a guy who was mocking God. Yeah. It was raining, and he's mocking God. He says, God, strike me down.
Because it was thundering and everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then as soon as he said that, I guess it was during the football game,
they were gearing up for it.
Yeah, someone literally tackled him as he was saying that.
He said, God, strike me down. The football player goes, huh? He says, "Come on, God, do it. Strike me down." Football player puts his helmet on. And he goes, "All right, God, he's getting one more shot. Shut him up now." And he says, "God, strike me down." The football player goes, boom!
Yeah.
Tackles him, goes, "God was busy, so he sent me." And then goes and does his thing.
That's what it was.
It's a wonderful
I always
story.
forget that part.
It's a wonderful story. I love it. It's just wonderful because God doesn't have to kill you to, strike you.
I have two. I think I have two of that book. If you want to try to read that book and start more on this on the next episode.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. There was a. I'm trying to think of another. There was another video I watched before you came here.
Was there?
I'm trying to remember what it was. That's what it was. So it was a question of why we can't see God, and and this is going back to like the created cannot be greater than the creator. He created us, and we're already super complex. That means God is way farther complex than we are.
Yeah, and we're made in
so
his
for
image.
us
That doesn't mean
to-
we're made exactly like
Yeah.
him, but that we are made in very similarities, just like you and I are similar.
Yeah. And for us to try to understand him is going to be extremely difficult, dare I say, impossible.
Right.
Because he is God. So that's why we don't see him. As much as like in the Bible, we only see, like Moses only saw his back. We see his back. We see him move. That's why we do not see him.
I mean,
because we are created.
Was it the only people that truly had a relationship with them was Adam and Eve?
Adam and Eve, and then Elijah.
Elijah.
There was Elijah, who was the only other person to go to heaven without dying.
Yeah.
Which is a cool story. We'll talk about him one time in a different episode because he's a really cool character. And he got that relationship back with God that Adam and Eve kind of lost.
And again, with trying to comprehend the concept of God, right, and heaven, all of that is so much more complex than even we are, and we don't understand everything about us, like you said before.
Mm-hmm.
But I done lost track of what I'm saying. I'm too ADHD for this, bro. But I'll probably just start rambling again, and it'll come up. What was I saying? Oh,
I'm ADHD too, buddy. I'm sorry. We're both a little tired.
Oh, I know what it was. Brother Ray went over this. We talked about it the other week. It was about how God exists out of what was it?
Time, space, and matter. And then they also added in
two other things. But let's just go with these three for right now.
Energy and something else.
Let's just go with these three: time, space, and matter. If he exists out of all three of these three things that have to exist among each other to be like they're dependent on each other to exist. If he exists out of those, then how are we going to comprehend him whenever we can barely comprehend time itself sometimes? Or even comprehend how matter completely works. Because there's still a whole bunch of stuff about chemistry that we're still learning, And it's just insane to me because all sorts of... And he's pulling up the video.
Yeah, here's a video. I love this dude. I believe he's the guy who helped figure out the science and create the model ark that's in Kentucky, and it's really cool. And he was asked this question of how does God exist what created God?
Right.
So this is his response to that.
Because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that formed by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God. And that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter. If I could fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping, that's for certain. So that's the God that I worship. Thank you.
That was kind of cut up, but I love that dude. He's good to watch. He's wonderful. Again, yeah, like he said, if we were able to understand God and compartmentalize...
Compartmentalized?
Yes, thank you. Him in our brain, he's a limited God, and therefore he's not God.
Right.
Which is weird to think about.
And like another thing, just one more thing, psychology. Okay, that is a very underdeveloped like science, it's still pretty developed, but it's also still rather new. But it's taught us a lot about the mind, but every single person's psychology is different in one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, just another way to show, like, the variety and complexity, you know, and we still don't understand it completely. And there's some crazy studies in the past due to lack of, what is the word?
Understanding?
No. A lot of studies that have actually done stuff, but they weren't very moral studies.
Oh, yeah.
But they were very useful studies, but they still weren't very moral.
One more thing. One more thing. This is the last thing. When we think about God existing, God has to exist. Okay, because we know inherently in our heart what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
Kelton and Dad were trying to find the verse earlier before we started.
But the verse basically says something about how we will know God's name. Even if you've never heard his name, you will know his name by just the wind and the trees.
His law is written on our hearts.
And it says that multiple times throughout the Bible, not just once.
And it is... So we know inherently what is moral, what is good, and morally bad.
Like a child going to a cookie jar, you don't have to tell them that stealing a cookie jar after being told no is wrong. They go to the cookie jar and double check that no one is looking. You know? So,
and then when asked to date the cookie, they go, "No, I didn't eat the cookie."
And they have the crumbs all over their
face.
And
they lie. No one taught them to lie. They just know it's wrong.
Right.
But they're doing it anyway to try and avoid getting in trouble because that's a human thing.
And then sometimes they'll come back later and be like, "Yeah, I ate the cookie."
Yeah. And it's shush, baby. But it's because if we didn't know more, for us to know what is right and what is wrong inherently, that means there is someone who has set the law. That means there's someone who has said this is morally right and this is morally wrong. And that person is God. Because if you do it any other way, if you go, well, it's the president, well, what if the president says murder is okay? Is it now morally okay?
Is it now legal?
Is it now legal and moral? Well, not legal, but is it morally good?
Right.
No, murder is morally bad, and it will always morally be bad, and we know that. So that's why you can't set it onto one person here on Earth, because that person can change their own morals. That's why it's important to have a divine being to be there to do that. Yeah. And part of having morals, just look at my mouth, and this is an entirely different subject we'll get into later, but creating, God gives us motivation to serve others and to love one another. And that's part of I like this phrase, it's part of the ladder to the divine, to what the divine purpose is. And the first rung is motivation. And that's kind of straying away from it. But I saw that video also when I was researching. I thought it was cool. Well, thank you for listening and tuning in with us. We're sorry this is recorded and not posted.
Yeah.
YouTube was like, no.
Because we don't have 50 subscribers.
So subscribe. Subscribe.
Yeah, another reason to subscribe. Help us out, before we have to buy robots. No.
I'm in college. We're all in college. We're broke. We can't buy robots.
Yeah,
the church buys robots. No, we're not the Catholics.
Bruh.
We're kidding. We're just having fun. Us Baptists love to eat, okay?
That's true.
What we're saying. These are my dogs, by the way, in case you were wondering. We hope you have a great rest of your evening and night, and that we hope to see you Wednesday, and Wednesday at 7. Hope you have a great night. We love you all. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.